This is a composite image of a painting of the F-16. This is a composite image for the painting of a P-51 Mustang. And we're going to explore this great airplane in Celebrating Aviation with Mike Machat. By request, special thanks and shout out to my viewers, North Island Naval Base, Yeti at Large, for suggesting this great idea for a video. How to paint airplanes, the step-by-step process showing how aviation art is created. Most of my work is centered around the modern aircraft, the X-planes at Edwards, airliners, military aircraft, sport aviation, but these are all generally modern subjects. And the questions always come up, have I ever painted World War II airplanes? The answer is yes. In 1985, I received an assignment through the U.S. Air Force Air Command and Staff College at Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama, to create a series of paintings of World War II aircraft. And working with the pilots of these airplanes became one of the highlights of my career. I did the Lockheed P-38 Lightning with Colonel Charles McDonald, seen second from right. The Curtiss P-40 Warhawk with General Robert Scott, author of the book God is My Co-Pilot. The Vought F-4U-1A Corsair with Medal of Honor recipient Colonel Ken Walsh. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt with 15th Air Force Ace Colonel Herschel Green. I painted the world's first operational rocket-powered combat aircraft, the world's first jet-powered combat aircraft, and into the Korean War with the F-82 Twin Mustang. But then there's the P-51, and I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the P-51. I'm a big Mustang fan. After all, I've owned 7 of them. Here's my first, and here's my current. A shameless plug? No, not at all. I can't help but wonder, when the first Mustang was introduced to the public at the New York World's Fair in 1964, how many people ever realized that the car was named after the airplane? It's a great story. We'll share that with you in another episode. But right now, we're going to talk about the career of Lieutenant Colonel Clyde B. East. Clyde was a soft-spoken Southern gentleman who enjoyed an Air Force career exclusively flying photo-recce aircraft, as he called them. East flew 200 combat missions, racking up 13 confirmed kills to become a double ace. Note the large map of Germany he always kept next to the glare shield. Born and raised in the farmlands of Virginia, East sought adventure as a military pilot and joined the Royal Canadian Air Force at age 19. After flight training, he was assigned to the RCAF 414th Tactical Recon Squadron in 1943, flying the North American Mustang 1. 1 year later, he transferred to the U.S. Army Air Forces, flying the Supermarine Spitfire Mark 5B with the 15th Tactical Recce Squadron, while awaiting delivery of their North American P-51B Mustangs. Upon delivery of the unit's new F-6D Mustangs, East named his aircraft Little Margaret after his new bride because, in Clyde's words, her name was Margaret and she was little. Clyde went on to fly the Lockheed FP-80, the Republic RF-84F Thunder Flash, the McDonnell RF-101C Voodoo, seen here during the Cuban Missile Crisis in October of 1962. But we're going to be talking about the North American P-51, and yes, I had to use a Lenwood cover. I should mention that occasionally I've had comments on my videos about quoting wrong specifications for airplanes. So full disclosure, for this video, I'm using the Bible, a book from Specialty Press written by one of, if not the leading authorities on the Mustang's history, Mr. Michael O'Leary. If that name looks familiar, Michael is editor-in-chief of Air Classics magazine, and this 240-page book contains more than 350 stunning black and white photos and illustrations. Specialty Press is offering a 25% discount for viewers of this channel, and you can easily order a copy using the link in the title block. The book will be shipped right to your door. 15,000 Mustangs were built by North American in Inglewood, California, and Dallas, Texas. 8,082 of those were P-51D models. 289 were factory-built F-6D or F-6K photo recon aircraft. They used Fairchild K-17 and K-22 cameras located in the aft fuselage, as you see here. The wing markings were unique to the F-6D. There were crosshairs for 9, 15, and 30-degree oblique camera sighting using similar crosshairs etched into the canopy. On the leading edges were drift indicator lines for wind. So how to paint airplanes, a step-by-step process. Step 1, the story and research. While returning from a morning mission on 8 April 1945, East spotted a Luftwaffe Heinkel HE-111H2 light bomber at 500 feet. And the combat engagement was extremely dangerous since he was flying close to enemy gun emplacements. But the bomber went down under control, hitting the ground in flat farmland northeast of Dresden. After a dead stick belly landing, the Heinkel ground looped and came to a rest in a cabbage patch seen here. That white glow around the tail would be coleslaw. Clyde then made a high-speed verification pass at an altitude of 1,000 feet at 300 miles per hour. The time was exactly 9:30 a.m. This is the actual 9-inch by 9-inch recon photo of the downed HE-111 taken from Clyde's F-6D belly camera. It offers a tremendous amount of information, such as the sun angle, the terrain layout, a serpentine drainage ditch with a lone tree and its shadow pointing right to the airplane. All of this will be shown in my painting. The photo was taken by a Fairchild K-22 vertical camera with a 12-inch focal point lens mounted in the Mustang's rear fuselage. Remember that map in Clyde's cockpit? Well, this is it, the official 1944 U.S. Army Air Force's map of Dresden, Germany. General terrain features such as roads, rivers, the topography were all used in the painting's background, and all were derived from this chart. Next step, photographing the model. I built a 1/48 scale monogram P-51D. My apologies to Max's glue troopers or any professional model builders. This is just literally slapped together to get the shape and the general markings of the airplane. I photographed the model at 9:30 in the morning. Some artists use photographs while others rely on digital graphics or even descriptive geometry, but I prefer using models to see the airplane in 3 dimensions. I walk around it and it allows me to identify the exact view that I want for the final image. Next is the engineering drawing, adding correct markings for Clyde's unit, structural photo recon mods to the airplane, and all the other small yet significant details that he described. The airplane's shape has been adjusted for camera distortion, while camera ports and correct wing markings have been added. And I should mention that the camera ports are different than those shown in the factory-built aircraft, which means this was one of the field-modded airplanes that was changed from a P-51D to an F-6D. And I want to mention also that the airplane is an F-6D. I've been there were comments on earlier videos where I mentioned this airplane's name and people thought I was saying F-16. This is where all the magic happens. I take the structure of the airplane and make sure that it's accurate. You can see all the detail in the cockpit, and all this will be rendered in the final painting. So I begin the composition using the information that I have from that 9x9 photo. So I put it into perspective, and then I develop the background around that. Extending the perspective lines to the vanishing points on the horizon, I'm starting to build the farmland, again, using details from the map of Dresden. And now here's the airplane integrated into the scene. And this is an important step. I have marked in red arrows here the tangent points, the places, hinge lines, corners, edges on the airplane that would be very susceptible to what are called tangents, where if they line up with anything in the background, a road, clouds in a skyscape, anything that touches these points will literally take this 300-mile-an-hour airplane in this particular scene and stop it dead. It's a problem that you have to be aware of in composing the airplane and integrating it into the background. This is the method for transferring the image from the tissue drawing to the canvas. This is a different painting here, but I'm showing the use of charcoal pencil on the back of the drawing, and then that's redrawn onto the canvas, and that transfers the line drawing, which you see here. It was amazing to me how Clyde recalled the scene that morning in such vivid detail some 40 years later. He described the weather and the terrain conditions, plus the chaotic scene on the ground as he flew overhead. He remembered seeing a small town on the horizon with a church steeple, a stream with a low bridge, and a nearby farmhouse with smoke wafting from its chimney. He also remembered black German staff cars on a small road to his left, stopping to render assistance to the downed Luftwaffe crew, with men in dark uniforms running toward the bomber. The background was developed around the factual information from Clyde's photo. And with the airplane then integrated into the scene, the entire illustration was transferred onto a 30 by 36-inch canvas. And I was now ready to paint this historic moment in time. First step is the underpainting. This is it at 15%. This is a series of layers of paint applied, building up the form and defining the lighting, form and structure and detail. And it's a very slow process and very careful work. Here's the underpainting at 70%. We're now seeing an indication of what the final painting is going to look like, but we're not there yet. Before I show you the finish, let's take a look at some of those details that Clyde remembered. Here's the photo and the bomber in the painting. Here's the town with the church steeple and the river with the low bridge, the farmhouse with the smoke, and the road with the German staff cars and the men running toward the bomber. A few details about the airplane. The gun ports were covered with red tape. This was to keep rain and debris out of the guns on the ground. They were fired through the tape. The tape remained on the upper and lower wing surfaces, and then the residue from the guns trailed back from the leading edge, as you see here. This is the cockpit. Notice the muddy boot prints on the wing. Clyde was very emphatic about showing that because they climbed up on the main wheel and then onto the leading edge of the wing, walking over and climbing up into the cockpit. And remember that map? There it is against the glare shield. One other bit of artistic license I should mention is that in plotting the ground, I actually rotated the horizon so that it looked like it was wrapped around a giant cylinder. And this was to enhance the feeling of Clyde pulling up into a left turn, and the ground was rolling away from him as he did that. So that was a device that I used to enhance the painting. And here's the final art. This painting could only be called one thing: photo finish. Now, you've heard the term life imitates art, right? Well, here's a great example. This is a photo of a stunning restoration by Mr. Butch Schroeder of Clyde's airplane. But what's interesting is that Butch had seen a print of my painting at Oshkosh in the late 1980s and called me to ask about how I knew that the markings were accurate. I told him the story of working with Clyde, and I sent him all the material I had. And this airplane was restored from the material I used to make the painting. The ending of this story is that in 1993, this incredible airplane was awarded the EAA Grand Champion Warbird, the highest honor you could have in this venue. Now here's Clyde in the cockpit in 1945. 60 years later, Clyde poses with Butch Schroeder's impeccable award-winning F-6D Mustang restoration at the EAA Air Venture at Oshkosh, Wisconsin in July 2005. I asked Clyde what he thought of Schroeder's Mustang, and he replied, It was impressive, but my airplane was never that shiny. And there you have it, the story of painting the F6D Mustang. My special thanks to some very special people who made this possible. Mr. Casey Law, the good folks at Aero Art America, and Lieutenant Colonel Dave McFarland. I'd like to dedicate this episode to the memory of Lieutenant Colonel Clyde East. Thank you for celebrating aviation with Mike Machat. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, until next time, take care.